Hey everyone, and welcome to Otaku Talk. I'm your host, OD. Today we will be reviewing and analyzing chapter 10, 11 of One Piece. And boy, I just love coming off of breaks with One Piece. Like, Oda never disappoints. He's like, yo, I know you guys were waiting a whole week for some content, so boom, here it is. Fire. And you just got to give it to Oda. And later on in this chapter, we see classic Chota, where he just trolls the ever-loving mess out of us because that's what Oda does. And he does it in such a great fashion that, like, you just eat it up. I think a lot of people are going to have, not a lot, but there's going to be something to take issue with what happened in this chapter. I'm personally not one of them. So without much further ado, let's get into it. Alright guys, so this chapter was chock full of action and various things going on and brought up a lot of questions, right? So let's start from the top. So in the very beginning of the chapter, we have the completion of what Big Mom started creating the other chapter. And it looks like what pretty much everyone thought. She created a replacement homie. I didn't know it was going to be the exact same thing. It appears to be a cloud homie, so a complete replacement for Zeus. She's even named it Hera, which is the sister wife of Zeus. So I'm just going to assume it's a more powerful, which is weird because isn't Zeus supposed to be like, god of like lightning and thunder, shouldn't he be the strongest? But I'm just going to assume, because otherwise what's the point? It's going to be a more powerful and more, let's say more mature form of Zeus that won't goof around, that won't play around. As we've seen, Zeus is a little bit childish. We see him with the little child hat. Hera seems a little bit more grown. As we know, like, women mature faster than men, so maybe that's the angle they're going for here. We don't really see a lot of her. We see one really powerful attack, and that's the extent of that. So that's all we really got in this chapter. I'm really excited to see how that goes, where we go from there. And that's the extent of that. In addition to that, some more information we get. It looks as though Zeus is freed from his little metal cage. And so the only thing that makes me wonder is, okay, it seems like there's a range to Kid's power, or if he's overwhelmed using his powers, he can't maintain control over magnetism somewhere else. So this makes me think that there's a distance in which his magnetic control ends, as well as he may have like a log type room or area of effect where his powers are optimal or work. So I just thought that was really interesting. Not a big takeaway, but I do think it might be relevant later on in this chapter. Like we said, I'm really expecting big things out of Kid. I think as a whole, the community's been disappointed. I know that there's probably going to be something with that, like, well, he's not supposed to be that strong. Like Luffy is going to be the main character. I'm not saying that I wanted Kid to be Vegeta to Luffy, right? I didn't necessarily want him to do that, but I didn't want Kid to be a Z warrior, if that makes sense. I didn't want him to be like kind of useless fodder. There's this next generation, right? And their goals are, similar to the previous generation. Become Pirate King, freedom, all that stuff. And so I would expect, Luffy not to just burst out of the bunch as like all powerful, especially with like when we have Zoro, who seems to be, I don't want to say keeping up, but he's up there as well. The sheer ability to block 2 Yonko, the sheer ability to inflict pain on a Yonko is really incredible stuff. So I really need to see this other supernova that had originally a higher bounty than Luffy, that, has been slightly more gung-ho almost than Luffy, and like how he's challenged Shanks and how he's invaded other places and whatnot. So I think Oda's doing it on purpose. I really do hope that Kid gets his moment. Is it going to be against Big Mom after what happens at the end of this chapter? I'm not quite so sure. So let's move on. The next thing that happens in the chapter, Law pretty much says, yo, Luffy, I'm going to give you and Kaido some space. I'm going to head out. I'm going to take everyone with me, which I really thought was really interesting verbiage, right? I'm going to take everyone with me because in my head, I'm like, the only person you need to take is Zoro. Killer and Kid already left. So you see two poofs, which you can assume were Zoro and Law, but then you see a poof a little bit away, and it kind of seems as though that poof is Zeus. And in my head, I'm like, why is he taking Zeus? Part of it's like he's maybe concerned that Zeus may aid Kaido in their fight, or he just wants to, further separate Zeus from Big Mom. But it's a little weird that he's doing that because it kind of appears like he brings Zeus closer to Big Mom, if it is Zeus. I'm assuming it's Zeus just because I don't know who else it could be. I went back in the chapter. There's no one else on the rooftop. So it has to be Zeus he took. But later on, Zeus, it appears like he sees her is close to Big Mom. So that easily backfired. So anyway, after he's done that, Luffy's like, all right, bet. It's just me and you. I can cause as much havoc as I want, and starts, trading blows, clashing, I should say, with Kaido. And that it's a little bit different than what I said. I know I said I look dumb right now that he was going to get his ass kicked this chapter, but it looks like they're going even. So maybe I just honestly underestimated how powerful Luffy is currently, because I really thought that this was going to be a moment where Kaido's like, all right, time to really let it all out. But I don't know, they're just clashing right now. Luffy's still hanging. Quite disappointed in the hybrid form if this is all we are getting out of it, because you have to realize Luffy is not even fighting in a gear. He's fighting in his default base form against a hybrid Kaido. So that's kind of points for Luffy, because that's insane to me. Yeah, I don't know what Kaido's doing. Kaido's, honestly, maybe I don't want my theory to be wrong, but I think Kaido is just simply enjoying the fight. We've seen it time and time again in Shonen where the villain just doesn't want... It's the first time the villain has had a challenge in a while. He doesn't want to put an end to the fight immediately, which usually typically ends up screwing them over. But maybe he's just, this is the first time I've had in a while. We know that Kaido has been suicidal. Maybe he hasn't had a matchup, a threat in a while that could challenge him, that could push him, that could make him fear for his life. And he's starting to feel something like that with Luffy. I couldn't tell you. So that part is really interesting. There is a slight possibility that, Luffy, that Kaido is holding back, and we'll see in a later chapter him go full out on Luffy. But as of this moment, it's not there. But I kind of foresee Kaido gets serious, messes Luffy up, Luffy being like, okay, now that I have a general grasp of Conqueror Haki in my base form, what happens if I combine it with Gear 2? What happens if I combine it with Gear 4? I talked about how he hasn't used Snake Man yet. And the reason I said I don't think he's used Snake Man is he probably didn't think it was going to be efficient. When he used it against Katakuri, it helped him because, Katakuri can see into the future. So, being able to outspeed his reaction helped a lot. That's not really an issue as big with Kaido. So I think what he needed with Kaido was, I need strength. And that's why he went Gear 4. He was, full armament Haki because he needed to pierce Kaido. Now that he can do that with Conqueror's Haki, I think that there's a possibility that he'll go Gear 4, maybe incorporate it in that. Maybe we'll see a new Gear 4. So yes, that's something that I look greatly towards. Also, I just want to make a quick joke. I know that it's only swords that are supposed to be able to do this, but I kind of feel like, by the end of this series, Luffy's sandals are going to be Wazamano grade, because, dude, he has had these sandals from, the beginning of the series. I don't think he's ever changed them. I don't think, it's ever broke. Even his hat has been ripped, and, it's had to been sewed up. But these sandals, man, Nike needs to recreate them and sell them as the strongest sandals in the world. By the end of the series, I expect them Johns to be a full black blade, because this man has been fighting in these sandals since the beginning. Since day one, he's been fighting in these sandals. They have to be hockey infused. He needs to pass them down to someone by the end of the the series, because them junts are going to be a relic. I'm telling you, man. The amount of force and chakra and stuff he has been pushing through those. So anyway, now moving on to Basil Hawkins. I don't know if any of you are really fans of him. I thought he was an interesting character when he was introduced, but that's the extent of it. I've never really liked his shtick. I've never been really into like tarot card readers or fortune tellers. I hate astrology and all that, all that stuff, like Sagittarius and all that. I've never been a fan, and so this dude is like culmination of like everything I despise when it comes to like this sect of like psychicism and shit like that. But I don't know, man. Hawkins just comes across as super lame. This entire series, and honestly this entire chapter, everything he stands for goes against, the ideals of freedom and making your own fate, which is ironic because there's someone like Luffy who generally seems to be loved by fate, right? But at the end of the day, he doesn't let it control him and doesn't dictate him. And no one can argue that like Luffy isn't bold, because fortune favors the bold, so it kind of makes sense that in certain situations luck is on his side, because once again there's that expression, fortune favors the bold, taking those risks. You hear Basil Hawkins shout out these percentages, but what does that mean? Like, to be a main character means to go against the odds anyway. Luffy has been in situations where he definitely shouldn't have survived, like Crocodile, he died. He almost died twice. Whole Cake Island, he was surrounded for days, honestly, and was on a pirate Yonko's island and survived. Then he barely ran into Big Mom and got out. So he's been very fortunate this entire series. And like I said, just Basil Hawkins isn't technically a bad character. What he's saying is very sound. He was like, look, man, we were betrayed by Apu. Kaido came to get us. There was nothing we could have done. Like, just throwing in the towel and siding with Kaido was the smartest move. I looked into the future. I used my tarot cards and some observation hockey and saw that, if we went against Kaido, we would have been screwed. And honestly, if you think about it like that, in that context, it's very pragmatic. It's almost as if Basil in this moment is what Law is to Luffy, the realist, the pragmatist, right? This is the most logical thing to go, but like it's less endearing when it's Basil Hawkins and Kid for some reason. But yeah, man. Like I said, this. I don't want to hold too much against it. It's kind of lame. It's just kind of lame. You can definitely argue that what he's saying makes sense. There's no doubt about it, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it is kind of lame. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. What was I about to say? I wrote something down here. But yeah, it's like you said, pirates. It's been said numerous times throughout the series that pirate fights aren't fair. Being a pirate isn't about fairness, but there is sort of an honor amongst thieves. And I do feel like Kid has a legitimate grievance, a legitimate reason to be upset, despite how logical Basil Hawkins, excuses. He still betrayed him. He still pussied out. And honestly, maybe it's just because, he don't got Conqueror's Haki, and that's why, because he's not a real dude. He's not a real nigga like that. But the one part I do really want to talk about, well, besides the fact that, Killer is just like cool as fuck, like, I like those odds pretty much, even though the odds he has 8% are even worse than the odds he had of gaining a smile ability. So, one could look at this as he's owed some luck, because he already rolled the dice and lost miserably. So, time to roll the dice again, and this time he's kind of owed, right? Like, he's been put through the ringer. So I really can't wait to see that fight. I love the scene where he pretty much sends I get huge Luffy Zoro vibes where he pretty much sends his captain ahead. Hey, you got to stop Big Mom. Just like they always send Luffy ahead. Hey, you got to stop the main big bad. You don't have time for this. I'm going to stay here and stop him. And I just love the trust that he has in his captain, because honestly, I would be a little bit shook with how Kid hasn't really contributed much. Let's be real. He has not contributed much at all in this rooftop fight. He hasn't. Every single person besides him has dealt like damaging blows to the Anko, and he just hasn't done a single thing. Yes, he did his suplex, and yes, I did say I do believe it did, maybe some minor damage. He used their own body weight against them, but not to the degree that all these other moves, even Sonic Scythe did. So I really do think Kid needs to redeem himself. And I did think it was a little bit weird that it was going to be Big Mom being utilized in this way. I do feel like some people might feel it's forced, like, oh, Kid is getting a Yonko level fight just to get a Yonko level fight, just to get Yonko level feats, maybe to do something. But, at the end of the day, if he's truly Luffy's rival, this needs to be the level, the playing field that he is on. A lot of people are like, just because he's Luffy's rival doesn't mean he has to physically be stronger than him. But I'm just saying, like, in Goldie Rogers' era, he had the likes of Whitebeard, right? The likes of, well, not Shanks quite yet, but let's just say Whitebeard and Odin. He had really, really strong people that were either his allies or to contend against, right? They were frenemies for the most part. But as you saw, like, it wasn't really one-sided. Like, yes, at the end of the day, Goldie Roger was the Pirate King, greater than them all. But when they clashed, it wasn't something where, like, he was just leagues beneath them, right? I still have to watch that anime episode where they have the Goldie Roger versus Whitebeard fight, just because it's iconic, and I love watching fight scenes in anime. But I'm pretty sure that we'll see that it's not just a one-sided fight between him and Whitebeard. It's a clash of rivals that respect each other and that powers rival each other. And maybe Gold Roger's will just kind of outweighs Whitebeard slightly more. So, yeah, there's that. Moving on. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this. The part about the percentages just reminds me a lot of just so much anime and manga. I don't even know which particular one, where they're like, as long as the chances aren't zero, there is a chance. I always love that kind of mentality, because I think it's easy to see the odds stacked against us and just, fall into despair, just be like, what's the point? It takes this long. It takes only this percentage of people get into this career or do this job or are able to successfully do this thing. And you see those statistics and you're like, you know what? Yeah, there's no point in me doing this because the odds aren't in my favor. But, the only way the odds are ever truly 0% is if you don't try. So I think that's the kind of way that Killer is approaching this. So I'm very excited to see how this fight goes. A concern I do have with all these fights racking up is that we're not going to see all these fights. It just seems like it's impossible for us to get good, thorough fights. And the way it's looking, we're either going to get a fuck ton of off-panel fights, or we're going to get a fuck ton of either one panel fights where not really one panel, but in a couple of panels the fight is resolved or occurs. Maybe one chapter will be dedicated to resolving 2 to 3, maybe 4. I doubt 4, but fights at a time. So we're not going to get really in-depth fights. I have a feeling Oda might possibly save that for us to enjoy in the anime. Right now, his concern is getting through the story. So we'll see. Flash forward, we're back with Nami, Usopp, and Otama. We're reminded that dongos don't work on devil fruits. I was seeing a lot of people on the Reddit say that we finally have confirmation. I was always under the impression they didn't work on Zoan users. Was that just me? I'm not sure. Did they not mention it before, or did I just kind of headcanon that? Because the way it's sounding, it sounds like I just headcanoned it, and it's just now being officially confirmed. But I was I was definitely under the impression that it was well known that she couldn't use it on Zoan users. So maybe I'm bugging. Also, the fact that it works on Smile users and not Devil Fruit users, I find really curious. Part of me thinks that in whatever way Caesar Clown created the smile fruits, it was in a different way that devil fruits usually imbue you with power, right? So we do know that eating a devil fruit causes a change in your lineage factor, aka your DNA. And so I just have this kind of, small little theory that maybe he took a shortcut or a roundabout method and he couldn't quite recreate the ability of a devil fruit or do the make it like the artificial ones that Vegapunk made. So he did something close where he pretty much just did something akin to gene splicing. I don't know if you guys have seen, like, for example, like Batman Beyond, where there was a time here where all the teens were doing things where like they were like giving themselves animal DNA to make their eyes look cool, to give themselves fur and whiskers, and like, but also secondarily they were getting like animal abilities like heightened sense of smell and like enhanced strength and stuff. So maybe what he was doing was more akin to gene splicing, and that's why it was a lot harder. That's why it's a lot more unsuccessful. And so maybe he's using like raw animals. Maybe he's been experimenting on animals, extracting their lineage factor, putting it into the fruit somehow, and that's how he's making these smiles. And that's why her donga that's only supposed to really work on animals. There's an exception for the smile fruit users because what they're doing isn't making them like a Zoan user. It's actually turning them into part animal. They're actually part animal. Like when they're in their base form, they're just that their regular form. When they're in their animal form, they're that animal, and then when they're in their hybrid form, they're a fusion of both. But they're not actually an animal. It's more of some kind of, manifestation of the animal or power. They don't actually channel that animal or something of that nature. I'm kind of spitballing here. I don't really know. So I just think we'll get, a little bit more information on that. This chapter really brought up something in me that I think needs to be talked about. And I think that's the entirety of the Straw Hats needing to learn hockey. For the longest time, I think a lot of us just kind of said, hey, the big monster trio, probably Jinbei, and if Yamato joins, they're the only ones that really need hockey. But I don't know. Like, I know each individual member of the pirate crew has their own role and goal, and technically people like Brook don't need to be essential fighters. Like, he's a musician. Technically, Robin's the navigator. She doesn't. But, like, I do think that in order to be a successful crew, you guys have to be able to deal with threats, and it has become glaringly and blatantly obvious that hockey is a necessity for being able to hang in this world, being able to contribute, because unless you have a really powerful devil fruit, you need at least, if you're a human, you bare minimum need hockey. And when I say human, I mean like a non-powered up, non-devil fruit, non-giant, non-whatever. You need hockey to put you on a level playing field. And as we've learned that it can be trained and controlled, it's definitely something they need to look into, especially someone like Usopp. You can argue it for Nami. You can kind of argue it for Chopper, even though he does have the ability to fight thanks to his Zoan fruit and his rumble balls. But like, he is in a combat role. He is the marksman of the Straw Hat. What's the point of being a marksman if you shoot a Logia, whatever you shoot at them goes through them? If you shoot someone who can kill himself in armament hockey, the damage is mitigated, right? I was actually really shocked to see that it does look like Usopp's barrage of attacks are injuring Page One. Like, we see Page One, he's wheezing, he's getting hurt. Like, these attacks from Usopp aren't sweet. Like, Usopp is throwing out everything he has on him. Also, shout out to the fact that, like, when Otama said that she was scared, he like started attacking more and started trying to, like, show bravery for her. I really found that really admirable and touching, and just a reflection on like Usopp's growth, right? Because he was always the coward, he was always the scared one. But like in this moment where Otama is going ham, doing her absolute best, he's like, don't be scared. I'm here. I got you. And like, I really that touched me a lot. But yeah, man, like, obviously as a marksman, I just think it's superfluous. Being a marksman is superfluous without hockey, unless you have like Sea Stone or something. So I do think it's time that, obviously he's going to get observation hockey. Obviously. But what does observation hockey mean if you can't hit or damage whatever it is that you're trying to attack? So I do love these gadgets, but I do think that there needs to be a time where he grows out of these gadgetry. I really want to see him infuse hockey into his slingshot. Yeah, man. I think that's the extent of it. A slingshot at the end of the day can't be as good as a gun, even though technically when he's like throwing out grenades and like massive explosives, it does end up turning out that way. But I do want to see eventually he has to surpass his dad, Yasop, who's the greatest marksman. And if his dad has, armament hockey, like that's a thing. I remember in the beginning when Shanks got ganked, Lucky Roo or whatever had the gun. We had Ben Beckman with the gun, and I'm positive these guys can channel hockey through it. So if they can do it, he should be able to. Last thing I want to touch on this not on this chapter, is pretty much. The last thing I want to touch on is this has been the third or fourth time they've repeatedly stated that like the dinosaur type Zoans seem to have really heightened regenerative abilities. There have been many times they have taken really hard shots that should have really laid them out, and they've been able to bounce back. So maybe it's just because they're lizards. We know that you cut off the tail of a lizard, they're able to grow it back. So maybe like the Zoan fruit just takes that to the nth level, and they just have super regenerative abilities. Because even it's not that he's not damaging him. Usopp's not saying, "Wow, I can't believe I'm not damaging him." It's that I can't believe how much damage he seems to have taken, and just how much he continues to tread on. So I just want us all to keep that in mind. Coming up next, Oda says, "Fuck your matchups." Okay, he completely trolls us. We're all spending all this time in the world trying to figure out like who's going against who, and then just randomly like all these matchups are just kind of rickrolled, and just once again Oda being Oda. But then again, it's what happens with Big Mom, and I'm gonna get into it. What happens with Big Mom is just it's the nature of One Piece. It's the nature of freedom. It's the nature of choice and your relationships with people and honor, and how everyone has their own code, despite being a pirate not being fair, or not necessarily doing the right thing, and pirates not being heroes. At the end of the day, you come up with your own choice. I have been saying this time and time and again. Luffy is always telling people who tell him, "Oh, aren't you a pirate? Aren't you bad? Figure it out for yourself. You tell me. You come up with your own decision." Because once again, in this world that is One Piece, everyone's thoughts are controlled. We're told that Goldie Roger, from one half of the people, is a monster, is a devil, is awful person. The government exacerbates that. But then we have everyone who's ever met Gold Roger telling you, "Nah, he's a cool ass dude." Even Garp worked with him, and Garp secretly is like, "He's a cool ass dude. I can't really go around saying it because I'm the hero of the Marines, but I fucked with him so much that I was willing to raise his son, his mortal enemy in terms of him being a pirate and me being a Marine. I was willing to raise his son." That's how much respect and love I had for Goldie Roger. And that's the same thing. Like, I think my friend was telling me about a part, I have to remember who it was, but Buggy was talking about Luffy with someone else, and they're both describing Luffy, but without knowing the other person, not knowing that it's Luffy they're talking about. And Buggy is essentially going like, "This dude was awful," and the other dude was going like, "This dude was amazing. I really think you would like him." And the irony of that situation is hilarious, because based upon your situation, who you're talking to, your experience, what you did when you met that person, can lead to like if you get along with them or not. Like, if you meet your soulmate, but she cut you off in line or flicked you off or something, you're not gonna establish a good relationship with them. And that's kind of what happens in One Piece. And I'm going to save what I have to say next, but I just want you guys to keep that open with how important that is in One Piece and how limited information controls everything, and how, from island to island, with Luffy's bounty raising, we're told that like Luffy did X, Y, Z, and that, some people see him as a menace, but the people he's actually helped know him to be anything but. And so that's really interesting. So before I really want to dive into Big Mom, but before I do that, I gotta give it out to the homie who secretly I really wanted to be a Straw Hat crew member. Ace promised her he would take her out. Ace obviously can't keep that promise anymore. So, who should be able to keep it? His little brother. But, we don't have time. We don't have time or space on the crew like that. I already think that definite locks are Yamato, and the top two locks are Yamato and Carrot by far. Do we have room for a cabin girl? She's proven her strength and loyalty exponentially, but I just have to say it. Otama, once again, she was already the MVP for, feeding all the Smile users, feeding all the Smile users her dongos and converting them over. But she is the real MVP right now. The real MVP. She has gotten Big Mom on their side, bro. She's recruiting superstars out here better than the fucking Brooklyn Nets, bro. For those of you that don't know basketball, I usually don't watch it. I recently got into basketball again like last year because of Steph Curry, because he's phenomenal. But for those of you who don't know, the Nets are basically getting the greatest players in the game right now all on one team. A lot of people think it's unfair, and that's what's happening here. Not only did she recruit all the fodder, but a major piece has been moved, and that is Big Mom. I don't really play chess, but basically she got a queen for free. Basically she took the enemy's queen. The enemy's queen is on your side. You got two queens and a king and all that stuff now. So this is super awesome. This is definitely heavily going to change the tides of the battle. It was alluded to. When we originally heard about the betrayal, it was obvious that, okay, it's going to be Big Mom and Kaido. But then, it was one of those situations like in not One Piece, in Naruto, where we find, where after learning about Toby, we're introduced to Obito, and it's like, Toby is clearly Obito. It's so obvious that Toby is Obito that the mangaka wouldn't make it Obito just so that it's not obvious. And then what ended up happening? It was Obito, and it was very obvious and kind of storily disappointing. This is done in a really nuanced way that I really like and appreciate. Once again, I said it earlier in this review video, a lot of people are not going to like this. A lot of people did not like the whole amnesia arc with Big Mom. They thought it was a cop-out. A lot of people are going to think this is just some kind of, instead of being a plot point, it's going to be like a plot hole used, just some kind of convenient Deus Ex Machina-esque device used to justify switching things up, to justify putting Big Mom on their side. But honestly, it kind of makes sense, and it's really clever to me. It's really clever to me. I don't think it's an attempt to manufacture a twist. And basically, it leads me to this, right? It leads me to this. What are the ramifications of Big Mom remembering Otama? It makes me almost think that Big Mom isn't actually a bad person. She just can't control her hunger pangs. Because when I first read that, I kind of got annoyed. I was like, are you kidding me? You're such a hypocrite right now. You're mad that Kaido's underlings, and in essence, Kaido did these terrible things to the people that treated you nicely with hospitality. But do you know all the bad things you've done, not only to your own family, but to the other people, in other islands? She was going to wasn't she going to destroy all of Fishman Island because they didn't have her candy? And which I'm going to talk about that later. But like I said, it makes me what are the ramifications of Big Mom remembering her time under amnesia? Because we kind of assumed when she snapped back, she was Big Mom again. When she has amnesia, she doesn't remember being Big Mom. So it appears that whatever happened while she has amnesia, she remembers currently. And so, she has her Big Mom mode or whatever. And we've kind of never seen her treat little kids poorly. We've seen her older kids get treated like shit, but she still loves them. When Cracker got fucked up, she sent a whole army to where he was. So there is like caring in there. We've seen Kaido like in certain moments, like there's caring. Like he doesn't really care about his underlings, but we saw how he treated Jack and how he respected Jack. So we do see that Yonkos do have the capacity for empathy. And so one thing is, what if Big Mom isn't actually a bad person? What if she legitimately can't control her hunger pangs? Maybe it's like someone with mental illness when they go on their like little manic episodes, or they schism or whatever. They go through this thing they can't control, and unfortunately they remember. And what if she remembers everything she did during her hunger pangs, including murdering Mother Carmel and all her friends, and she's secretly traumatized? And maybe that's also another reason why she acts like a child all the time. Maybe that's still why she's mentally a child, because she's traumatized, and when you experience trauma, you have trouble moving out of the age you experienced that trauma, or you regress to that age where you experienced that trauma. This is something I've said for years. But ever since the incident at Fishman Island I just talked about, I always thought that Big Mom is not that much different from Luffy. They're both incredibly selfish, and they're both gluttons. And they both get extremely mad if you mess up their meal. Now, Luffy isn't as crazy as to, imprison people, to kill people just because, he doesn't get his food. But I've seen him throw whole ass tantrums over food, over meat. And so you can't tell me that hypothetically, end of series, if Luffy doesn't die, if everything works out and, he just gets to enjoy life, you can't see him, like, I don't want to say demanding tributes, but taking donations from the islands under his control, under his protection, to feed him, massive amounts, plethora of meat. And obviously it's not going to be looked down upon or frowned down upon as much, because, most people are going to be doing it out of, genuine generosity and thankfulness and gratitude. And you also know that Luffy, if, a shipment of meat or something doesn't come, he's not going to, flip a shit. But, this is kind of how being a pirate works. This is kind of how putting an island under your protection works. It's tit for tat. And so my kind of theory with all of this is, what if everything Big Mom does, her ascent for power, her becoming a Yonko, her demanding sweets from all these places, is her way of keeping herself in check. Maybe she legitimately, like a mental illness, just like a mental illness, cannot control her hunger pangs, cannot control her tantrums. We saw her flashback. Her own parents abandoned her because they were too scared of her, weren't willing to try to figure out how to, control her powers and stuff like that, and abandoned her. And then she met she met Mother Caramel and the other, giant children. But, even though she had love and compassion, that she genuinely, legitimately had love and compassion for Mother Caramel and the rest of the giants, when she doesn't get her way, when she doesn't get her food, she gets hunger pangs, she gets crazy. And maybe because now that we're seeing that, it seems like it's confirmed that she remembers what happens during these moments, she maybe feels internally bad. She can't show it because she's still Big Mom, she's still a Yonko. But maybe she really feels bad, and she's like, okay, I can't let myself get hungry. I don't want to kill myself, and I do want my dreams to come true, but I don't want this to keep happening. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna force people. Unfortunately, it's gonna have to be this way. I'm gonna have to force people to provide me with sweets and candy and all sorts of goodness all the time. Like, I think even in the opening to this chapter, in the cover art, they say it's hard to like not smile on a full stomach or something of that degree. And maybe like just being full all the time keeps her happy. And so maybe it's one of those things where she's lawful evil when she's fed, but she's chaotic evil when she's going through hunger pangs, and everything she's done has been to keep herself in check. Like, we have to remember, the sole reason she has beef with Luffy, well, minus, the Sanji thing, but this was before that, was because he fucked up her her candy connection and ate all her stuff. Like, that's the only reason, which honestly is a legitimate reason if, like, you know, you're a pirate lord and someone went on your turf and just kind of, like, screwed your shit. So, yeah, I found that really interesting. I just think that's something to think about. So, for people that think, that are like, well, Big Mom's a really bad person, blah, 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 yada, 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 maybe think about it like that. Maybe she can't control herself, and this is the only way she could see fit to kind of put a leash on herself. By getting, as long as she gets what she wants, everyone's happy, and she doesn't do unnecessary things. So yeah, that's, but something I do want to say is that I have noticed that, Luffy shares a lot in common with all. I think that's something we're going to notice is Luffy shares a personality trait or something in common with a lot of these Yonko. You know, to be the Pirate King, you have to have, you know, these goals, these convictions, right? And I think with Luffy, he pretty much has a lot of the same personality quirks as a lot of these people. He has the, you know, like I told you, he has the selfishness and gluttony of Big Mom. He has, you know, the fighting passion and will and tenacity of, you know, Kaido. You know, he has the free-spirited love and blah, blah, blah of Shanks. And then he has, like, the love of family and friendship, like Whitebeard. So I think that, like, you know, he has different parts of all the Yonko manifested within himself. However, Luffy doesn't take things as far as these other Yonko does. We've seen time and time again that he can control his urges when they combat with his conviction. A prime example, how he starved himself on Whole Cake Island until he got food from Sanji. If anyone knows Luffy, they know food is the biggest thing in the world to him after his Nakama. And he proved that by focusing on his Nakama instead of food. He was starving, and we know Luffy gets weak when he's starving, and we know he gets grubby when he's starving, and he loves food. And for him to just do that because I'm not doing it as a means to show how serious and dedicated I am just proves so much. So yeah, that's all I wanted to really say about that. Time to close up. I want to close up these last two points. Something I noticed about Conqueror's Haki is that it doesn't really look like it's flowing out, right? Every time I've seen Conqueror's Haki used, or what I now know is Conqueror's Haki, it kind of looks like Haki isn't flowing out of Luffy or whoever's using it. It looks like they're punching existence itself, quote unquote, matter itself. And it made me think, you know, what if potentially Haki is some kind of control over matter? Like, One Piece secretly becomes super science fiction-y, right? And so my thoughts are maybe like observation Haki is the ability to observe matter. Maybe that's why they're able to tell when things are coming, tell where things are coming from. Maybe borderline seeing to the future because they're able to see matter. You know how matter changes. There's a whole science to it. Matter changes when it's being observed and blah, blah, blah. So maybe you're just the voice of all things is just being able to put your will into matter and hear the, you know, what matter is saying. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, or I think some scientists said it, that science is just matter trying to understand itself. So that's really cool. Then you have armament Haki, which maybe is just strengthening of matter, maybe changing the bonds of things so that you're stronger. So maybe Conqueror's Haki isn't just utilizing matter like the regular Hakis, but it's an advanced form of Haki where it's actually your own will, and you can oppose your own will on matter. Because like I said, every time it pretty much looks, every time someone uses Conqueror's Haki, it looks like they're punching or striking a pocket of air. So it looks like they're physically like attacking the environment itself, and that reaction is hurting. And maybe that's why when there's major clashes of Conqueror's Haki, there's like that lightning, that cataclysm, that clash, that almost tear in existence, because you have two people slamming matter into each other, causing this reaction. I was going to say this like chemical reaction, but I don't know if it's chemical. But I'm just spitballing. I don't really think about that theory. I just think it's something to think about. I think it's just something to think about. Just the visualization of how Conqueror's Haki is, what happens when it clashes, and just, I don't know, it really seems like it's not flowing out, like he's not really coating himself in it. It seems like he's actually physically striking external matter. He's actually interacting with the environment. It also makes sense about how you can kind of manifest it into beings, like how Zoro can use Ashura, and even in his fight with, who was it, Kaku? Kaku could see Ashura. So other people can see the embodiment of your will, just like how Kaido could see Luffy's Conqueror Haki glaring at him, see his will glaring at him. But also it seems Kaido has some kind of ability to possibly hear the voice of all things. Maybe that's related to Conqueror's Haki as well. Maybe Momo has Conqueror's Haki as well. But we do know that Momo's ability to hear the voice of all things seems a little bit more niche and nuanced. Anyway, the last thing I have to talk about is we see from Big Mom's attack that Page One is just blasted through the floor, and it appears that Zeus and Kid see her, which I'm really confused about, because remember earlier when I talked about when Law swapped him out, it seemed like he took Zeus. So are Zeus, Law, Zoro, and Kid all in the same vicinity? That wouldn't make sense. I would assume Law would take Zoro to a safe place. I almost feel like he should take him back to where the Puniglyphs were, where no one was, where he was safe. Let him, do some emergency surgery on him. Let him heal up. But for Zeus to be there, that either means that Law didn't take Zeus and that he poofed somewhere else. And if he poofed someone else, who was that other person? Or he did take Zeus and they're there. I wonder what's going to happen to Zeus. He's been replaced. Even though Big Mom is willing to fight against Kaido now and join the Straw Hats and get revenge for Otama and the people that treated her well with hospitality, she still feels the way she feels about, Zeus belongs to her. It's not a Straw Hat thing. It's not a Kaido thing. It's her thing. And so she might just be like, hey, you've been useless. You've been blah, blah, blah. You've been replaced. I'm nice enough not to dispel you because, you're part of my soul, and maybe killing Zeus would be like killing part of her. So either she'll excommunicate Zeus, or she might, now that she's friends with Otama, might bequeath Zeus to Nami, and now we get Zeus in a natural way where it's not her stealing it from a Yonko, even though she's a cat burglar, and stealing it from a Yonko would be what's kind of anticipated. Also, Kid is there, and before I kind of didn't have any kind of high hopes for Kid fighting Big Mom. I thought his best chance was unlocking Conqueror's Haki in the heat of battle, just like Luffy did, maybe somehow awakening and being able to actually use the full extent of his abilities, like electromagnetism and all the things I posted in my last video that, should be subsets of magnetism. Because like I said, if you have magnetism, you have electromagnetism, because anytime you change electromagnetic fields, you create electricity. So this is something that he should be able to do. So now that Big Mom is on their side, I'm hoping Kid saw that it was Big Mom that hit Page One, so it's even a quicker oh, what? She's attacking Kaido. She's betraying Kaido. What? So yeah, is he going to keep fighting Big Mom? I think it's weird. I doubt it. Maybe he'll move on to maybe one of the calamities, possibly. Ulti saw Page One get hit. She clearly saw it. And honestly, all I really have to say is, what you gonna do about it? I think, the Tokirapa all want to challenge, they live in a kind of a meritocracy where, their strength is their level, and they all want to, fight to get into the calamities. And so, they don't really seem afraid of much, if you're a calamity, if you're a Tokirapa, you're above, you're the top of the top, you're the cream of the crop, right? And you're people that weren't that not necessarily had your will crushed by Kaido, but Kaido said, hey, you're someone that I'm willing to have under me, who I will treat better than the useless underlings. And so I don't think Ulti's going to be scared. I think to be a Tokirapa, you have to have the ability to not be scared to fight another Yonko. And I think Ulti's going to definitely try to step to Big Mom. But man, what a chapter. Oh, I forgot to mention this earlier, but when Big Mom is like, I have standards, besides the hypocrisy of it all, I just couldn't. I was just like, Big Mom.
Yeah, I got standards. Diamond nair, Flanders. Kool-Aid jammer. Cookie pack on camera. Yeah.
But I don't know, guys. I'm gonna leave it there for today. I said a lot. Do I have anything else? Yeah, I mean that's the extent of it. What are these matchups gonna be? You know, we thought we were gonna have all these matchups. Now it looks like we had Big Mom versus Page One. That didn't last long, and now we're gonna have what looks like Ulti.
Hey guys, I'm sorry. This video has been a mess and you guys deserve better. And I'm just so upset because for the last couple of weeks, I've been doing great on these videos in terms of quality wise. And then like the last video I posted yesterday and then the one today, kind of a atrocious mess. What I meant to finish up on that thought was, and now we have Ulti who clearly saw what happened to Pei. And so she's clearly going to be really upset and really going to want to fight Big Mom. All I have to say to her is, good luck to you. Yeah, do something about it. That's pretty much probably what Big Mom, like, do something about it, because you know she hasn't seemed to be shook, scared. She's a member of the Topi Rappo and they want to, you know, fight the Calamities, and like, you know, they're all people that are willing to, you know, I think even fight Kaido. So she'll definitely try her best. I just don't think her best will be good enough. Anyway, once again, I apologize for the, it's honestly really embarrassing. My audio on Logitech wasn't working because I stupidly had it muted. And so I have to use the audio from my camera. And not only does it suck, but with the new lens I have, you hear like a little crackling noise. So I'm sorry. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. Please like, share, and subscribe. I apologize. Anyway, have a great time. Oh, before you go, the same Meg that gave me the blanket also got me this hoodie. So yeah, ain't that shit dope? I appreciate her so much. Anyway, take care.
I got standards, suck on my nuts like planners. Ooh, yeah, my bitch a dancer, hop on the dick like a prancer. Ooh, polluted Fanta, flick with a Polaroid camera. Ooh, yeah, you talk outlandish, put him in a holy field like a vandal. Ooh, yeah, got a new mansion, new Ralph Lauren, cop 2 ranches. Diamonds is dancing, ice so cold, gotta walk with a panda. Yo, bitch so scandalous, give me that top with no handed. I got standards, I get the guap, cop more jealous. I got standards, take your bitches to Ritz, not no standing. Flow outlandish, when Ferg on the track, all you rappers are vanish. My bitch just landed, not a lick of English, she speaks Spanish.
I got standards, diamond nair, Flanders. Kool-Aid jammer, cookie pack on camera. Yeah, I got standards, diamond nair, Flanders. Kool-Aid jammer, cookie pack on camera. Yeah, I got standards, diamond nair, Flanders. Kool-Aid jammer, cookie pack on camera. Yeah, I got